What's up, guys? It's Lucid. Welcome back to the Moon Lagoon. I'm going to basically rewind everything that I've tried to talk about on this channel so far because I realized I was missing a really important piece of what I wanted to, or what needs to be heard in order for everything else that I'm saying to be received correctly. Because if you don't have this general understanding of what I'm about to talk about in your mind, it can be really difficult to grasp anything else that I say, I think. And the only reason I feel really moved to share it is because it moved me so much and really changed my perspective on everything. And the book that kind of urged me to make more of a video about it versus just like, because I was already going to make a video about this, but this book kind of helped create an even bigger like picture for me about how to share it. It is called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he is a spiritual teacher, and he did not have the experience that he talked about in his book until he was 29 years old. And I read the book in a day. I just read it yesterday, but the thoughts that he had already been sharing were things that I've already held for a long time in my life. And basically, it's the concept that time does not exist. And time is a construct that we've created in our modern day society. Now, I know there are going to be some people who aren't going to be able to understand this or comprehend it or receive it, and that is okay, even if you are still just open to listening to what I have to say, or listening to it without feeling defensive, and then at a later time reflecting on it and then see if you take anything from it. That's okay too. If you don't take anything at all, that's fine as well. But for those who do take something from it, I really hope that you're able to utilize this book. I really want everyone to, I feel like this is a book that should be given to like everybody right before like middle school, because this is when I started noticing some of the stuff that we do in our lives every day started happening around the time I started hanging out with more people my age who were trying to change me or tell me who I should be. So I go all over the place sometimes when I talk, sorry. So the main essence of the book is about learning that everything that happens in your life that you consider bad or good, positive, negative, if you're having difficulty feeling like your life isn't worth anything, or if like the things you do every day have no meaning, it's mostly because all of us are thinking in a reference of time. And when I say that, I mean most of us are concerned about what happened to us in our past and what's going to happen in the future. And when you're constantly worried about these two things, you are not in the present moment, which is right here, right now, in this moment that I'm speaking to you. This is the only present that exists. This is the only time that you can prove is real, is what you are experiencing right now. You cannot go back and live the past again. It no longer exists. And you cannot go and live the future. It does not exist. The only thing that is ever real is right here, right now. The reason it's hard to feel like that or to remember that is because your mind, which is separate from who you are, tries to guide your life. And the mind is best represented by your ego, and who you really are is your soul. So you have the soul sitting inside of yourself, and the mind is just in control of everything. It's trying to control what happened in your past and base your decisions from your past on who you are now. So that way this future happens, or your mind is trying to control you thinking about all these things that are going to happen in the future that haven't even happened yet. And I used to do this all the time. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about the past. My thoughts were always on the future. Oh, well, when this happens, I'll be happier. When I do this, then I'll feel good. And when I do this. And that is a detrimental way to be, because then you're never really living, because the only time you can live is in the present moment. That's the only time that you are actually being aware of being alive. If you're constantly living in the past or in the future, then you're never in the present moment, and that is the moment that matters. A good way to try and take in this idea, or to be receptive to this idea, is to think about, this is something that I thought of as a child, and then it kind of got taken away from me from school and other people, so I kind of let it go, but I've definitely come back to it. And I remember when we had like daylight savings time happen, and I was really confused about that because they were like, put the clock forward, put it back, and I was like, so what is that actually doing? Like, if we can just control, okay, now it's this time, instead of, now it's 7 o'clock instead of 6 o'clock. It made me confused. I'm like, so we can just decide what time it is now? And they're like, oh, well, it helps to save daylight. I'm like, so then what are the numbers? What do the numbers mean? I don't understand how you can now say it is 6 o'clock instead of 5 o'clock and we're all just okay with that. We're all just good with that. Or if I would see like my time on my phone was one time and then on the stove it was another time. And I would sit there and I'd be like, so I don't even really know what time it is. Why does it matter what time it is? And yes, the book will give you better advice than I can, because I just ingested this about how to still be able to live in the reality we live in, because we do use time for certain things in our lives, but it shouldn't guide everything else. It should guide those things when you have like a certain time to be somewhere or a schedule, but it shouldn't guide your personal thoughts, your personal feelings, the things that have happened to you in the past. You shouldn't constantly be reliving that, because then you're never learning about who you are here and now. Those things are gone, or the things you're afraid of that are happening in the future that have not even come to pass, that you might speak into existence from constantly thinking about them. And when I had these thoughts about time and not really understanding, like, okay, so I'm just supposed to believe that this is what time it is. I'm supposed to believe that today is Monday, whatever that is. And it's just a system that we use to move through life, but it's also one that has been set in place to limit you. It is something that the mind has created an even more stronger connection to, because it keeps you from finding who you really are behind that. And a way that I am able to get out of the concept of time and its existence in this world is to recognize that my mind is not me. My mind and my brain have nothing to do with me being here right now. My mind has nothing to do with the fact that I'm just a human. I'm experiencing this right here, right now, in this moment. There's nothing else that is real for me except where I am right now. This is the only presence that I have, is to surrender to what is here. And a good way that I do this is to recognize that, like, if your mind starts thinking about other stuff, like, oh, well, I have to go to work tomorrow, I have to do this, or, oh, I remember that one time I did that. Your mind is steering you into the past and the present, because that keeps the mind in control. Instead of saying, you know, oh, okay, I can just ignore that. Don't say you're going to ignore it. That's not how you get rid of the concept of time. You have to remove the idea that you are your mind and step outside of that and be the observer. And I really do like to sit back and just pay attention to what my mind wants to think about and treat it as something that is separate from me, because it is not me. I am not my mind. I am my own being outside of what my mind tells me that I am. So when I'm thinking of something and it's like, oh man, you're gonna have to do this wrong, this and this and that, I step back and I'm like, look at my mind trying to get me to worry about what's happening tomorrow instead of living here right now. Why is it doing that? And the book really gives a good analogy of, it's like the mind is like a little kid just like rattling stuff around, like, hey, pay attention to me, don't live in the moment, don't live in the moment. It robs us of our joy to be living in the construct of time that society wants us to use so heavily. It doesn't have to be a bad thing to have certain things that, you know, okay, this happens at this time, this happens at that time. When it comes to your personal life and your goals and your aspirations, it takes you away from doing that, because you're constantly worrying about things that don't even exist, is basically what I'm trying to say. And I never was like super into my mind until I recognized that there were things that society was telling me I needed to do or have had to have done at a certain time. And it is easier to feel the absence of time when you already don't feel like you are like other people. Like if you're like me and you didn't really fit in, or things didn't really make sense to you outside of like those things that everyone's supposed to believe and you don't believe them, it's easier for you to step out of that and be like, something else is going on here, like something is fishy. And I feel like the most important thing that you can do before you start any of your spiritual journey or go further into any aspect of yourself is to recognize that there is nothing else that is real except right here. You sitting here watching this video, this is all that is real right now for you, is to be sitting in this space and watching a video. You're not living in your actual past. You can't show me the past, and you can't show me the future. All that is here is now. That is all that is real for you. So when your mind's trying to take you to things, step back and look at what it's trying to do. Observe it. Don't judge it. You're not supposed to judge the thought. You're just sitting and observing, like, okay, my mind wants to think about that. It's good to see that the mind is trying to control you, and that the second you decide to observe your mind, you are now in control, because now it knows that you're looking at it. It's like, oh snap, like she knows that I'm like trying to tell her this and make her think about that. The second that I start recognizing that my mind is thinking about something, I am now in control of that, which is why it's called the power of now. It's the power of your presence in your life. And a lot of what I really resonated with in the book was talking about the difference between things that are bad or good happening in your life is not your life. It's your life situation. Because right here, right now, I could be like, oh, my life is horrible, my life is bad, but is it really bad right here, right now? Is my life horrible right now? Do I look like in this moment right here sitting talking to you, there is nothing wrong with me? This is something that your mind tries to place on you to think about all the time, to create a whole idea of who you are around your trauma or around your like negativity, when in reality you are always at peace inside of yourself, and it's up to you to choose to be aware of situations that happen in your life and how you want to move through them and how you want to move about them. I really think that the second I start spending more time being aware of those thoughts in my mind, especially like if I'm having like, it's easier when you're just by yourself, honestly, and you can just spend time being like observant of you. But when you start talking to someone else, it's real easy to go back into your mind, because you're trying to use your intelligence to keep people away or counteract or act like you're smarter or better than someone else, or that you're always right, and that is your ego. The second you drop that and you're just in yourself observing your mind, you can actually have a real communication with somebody. You can have a real conversation with someone when they're trying to come to you and like yell at you or make you feel bad or talk down to you, and you sit there and recognize what your mind wants to say back to defend its ego, and you're like, my mind wants to say this and this and that. That is not who I am. None of this is me. What they're saying to me is not me. They're talking to my ego, and I'm not feeding my ego anymore. I'm in myself. I'm observing what my ego would want to say, and that's not me. So I have nothing to say about that. And it doesn't mean apathy or like that you're not gonna like defend yourself. It's just gonna be like, I understand how you are feeling. Thank you for expressing yourself. Or even still, if they're like trying to get a rise out of you or a response out of you, I've always, when someone wants to have a confrontation or conflict with me, I know that what they're telling me most of the time is not really them wanting to understand me or understand the situation. It's just to make me feel bad because they feel bad. So they're saying all these hurtful, mean things, and it's not a question, so I don't give an answer, and I'll sit there. And so if I was talking to you and I was like, and that's why this and this and that, and you're trash, and then you don't say anything, I'm stuck there either thinking about how I just said all of that and there's no response back, so all that's left is what I've said. Or if someone's really, really mad or really, really hurt inside, they're going to keep going because they want that rise out of you. They want that energy back because that's what they're familiar with. That's what they know. It scares people when you do not respond back the way they anticipate you to, which is the power of now. It's so powerful to feel like you know who you are behind all these, like, because I consider the mind a mask in a way. And we talk to most people through our mind, through our ego, through our intellect. And there's nothing wrong with being intelligent, but there's a difference between talking to someone about things you know and talking to someone about how you feel. And a lot of people don't want to be vulnerable like that, and I understand that, which is why it's so important that you do your work yourself and understand yourself first before you try and incorporate any intimate relationships into your life. And if you are in one, it's important to be real with each other. Not your projection, not your mask, not things that hurt you in the past, that they say something and then it hurts you and then you don't know how to express it to them because you don't want to be vulnerable, so then you get mad at them because you can't express yourself, which isn't their fault, and then it triggers them and things that have hurt them, and there's no real communication there. There's no real growth there, and that's when people get into those cycles of, oh, we're happy, now we're sad. Oh, we're happy, now we're sad. You should not be having that kind of experience if you are being in the present now. If you're talking with someone and you can actually be honest and vulnerable and be like, you know, actually that really hurts my feelings when you say that, because this and this and that, but I'm working on this, or I notice that I'm feeling really hurt right now, and I just want you to know that like that did hurt me. Being able to just even voice some of these things isn't something a lot of people cannot even imagine doing. And I know it can be hard, but when you take your mind out of the equation and sit with what you're feeling, and you're partner or your friend or anyone that you can have a conversation with does this as well, there is so much more room to let go of whatever the mind is trying to make it into be, and actually growing from that. Because there are a lot of people who have been hurt really badly in their past, not just from previous partners or friends, but even the family. Just their whole experience has been built on that pain, and they don't know anything outside of that pain. So when they're having an experience with you and you say something that triggers a pain that they never dealt with in their childhood, it can be a great opportunity, if you're in your now, to be share an open space with them and ask them to try and take a step back and think about their emotions that they're feeling, and ask them if they can observe what it is they feel, and if it reminds them of anything, and to observe it, not to judge it. Just let them feel what they're feeling, but have them feel like they're in control of observing it. They know, okay, I'm feeling this right now, and this made me feel this way. I'm going to sit and observe that emotion. I'm going to feel that emotion and know that it's not me. And then the communication can go even further from there. And I don't want to get on a tangent for that, because that's a whole nother aspect of this. As far as on your individual scope, if you do have to interact with other people and you're out in public, I like to imagine, or I like to take, if it's hard to take my mind out of the world I'm in when I'm out talking to people, I like to find the silence beneath everything. So I don't know where you're at right now, but you might notice like the humming of a certain type of noise, a fan going on, cars driving by in the background. All these other noises are kind of always happening. And then find the silence beneath all of that. There's like a different silence, and you can feel it, you can observe it. And it's that deep inner stillness of just being in yourself and just feeling that, being like, okay, there's a quiet here that's quieter than everything else, and that is in me. And a lot of times too, if I notice my mind is trying to be in control when I'm out in public or out with people, I try and think of my mind, and I'm like, all right, let's see what my mind wants to do right now. I'm sitting there like basically like in the book, like a cat watching a mouse hole, waiting for the mouse to come out, and I say, I wonder what thought I'm going to think next. And I sit and imagine, I'm like, what does my mind want to think next? And a lot of times your mind will be like, it knows it's on the spot, so it's not going to think anything because it wants to be secretly in control. And when you are the one in control, your mind can't do that. And I want to make this video not too long, so hopefully people will click on it more. I know I can talk for a really long time, but really the main and most important thing that I really want to express is that feeling who you are behind that mask, behind those things that your mind wants to project onto you. The mind is trying to tell you that you are, how smart you are, how much money you have, all these labels that we put onto ourselves to define us. None of those labels are who you are underneath of that. Those things don't make you. You are not a piece of furniture. You are not this amount of money. You are a being, and you are outside of that. And I know it'll be really hard for some people to feel this way, because there's a really deep hole that a lot of us have dug ourselves into, and we've sat in our pain and we become our pain and we don't know anything else. But the second you step back and you look at that pain and you observe it and you don't run away from it, it has no more control over you. And I really want people to be in control of their lives again. So many people feel out of control. They have broken families, broken relationships, they're broken inside, and you can fix all of that inside, and you can fix it right now. There's no time, so you can literally fix it right here in the right now. And yeah, it's just it really changed my life. And I just am so tired of seeing people in pain and confused and afraid and hurt and not living. They're walking around like zombies. And I want you to be alive, and I want you to feel loved, and I want you to feel free, all through yourself. I thank you for clicking on this video. If you watched the whole thing, thank you for listening. I hope you took something away from this. I hope that you feel a little bit more present in your real moment right here, right now, outside of anything your mind is trying to steer you back to. I hope you have a beautiful day or night wherever you are, right here, right now. And I will see you guys next time on the Moon Lagoon. Peace and love.